William Hague backs Cameron on EU referendum. Foreign Secretary William Hague said there would be a very, very powerful case for a referendum if Europe moved towards a more federal system as expected in response to the Eurozone crisis. Also this evening, Cable urges bank shareholders to get a stronger grip. France introduces law ordering motorists to carry breathalyzer kits. And have you seen him? Wimbledon's Rufus, the Hawks still missing. Good evening. Foreign Secretary William Hague said there would be a very, very powerful case for a referendum if Europe moved towards a more federal system, as expected in response to the Eurozone crisis. But he said that the government wanted to see whether it could negotiate a better relationship between the UK and Brussels, with the return of powers before putting the matter to the British people. Mr. Cameron would be setting out this position on a referendum in more detail in the autumn, Mr. Hague said. David Cameron has sought to reassure Eurosceptics he is prepared to hold a referendum on Britain's relationship with Brussels, but only when there is real choice for voters. The Prime Minister insisted that an immediate in-out referendum, which he is under mounting pressure from within his own party to deliver, was not what the vast majority of people wanted. But, in an article for the Sunday Telegraph, he acknowledged the need to ensure the UK's position within an evolving European Union has the full-hearted support of the British people. Mr. Cameron said he agrees with the vast majority of the British people who have said we're not happy with the UK's relationship with the EU. There were large amounts of EU legislation that should be scrapped, he said. Put simply, for those of us outside the Eurozone, far from us being too little Europe, there's too much of it, too much cost, too much bureaucracy, too much meddling in issues that belong to nation-states or civil society or indeed individuals, he said, whose swathes of legislation covering social issues, working time and home affairs should, in my view, be scrapped. Nearly 100 Conservative MPs have written to Mr. Cameron urging him to make it a legal commitment to hold a poll on the UK's relationship with the EU during the next Parliament. Influential backbench Tory Mark Pritchard said the Tory grassroots and the British people are fed up of aluminium guarantees promising a future referendum on Europe. There should be a referendum in this Parliament, with events in Europe possibly overtaking all British political leaders. Mr. Cameron's article comes after the latest EU summit to tackle the Eurozone crisis ended yesterday with moves towards closer ties in the EU. At the end of the gathering, he told reporters that he was not in favour of an in-out referendum, leading some observers to think he was ruling out a popular vote altogether. Former Defence Secretary Liam Fox will set out his staunchly Eurosceptic credentials on Monday when he declares that life outside the EU holds no terror. In a speech, the Tory MP will say, "I would like to see Britain negotiate a new relationship on the basis that if we achieved it and our future relationship was economic rather than political, we would advocate acceptance in a referendum of this new dynamic. If, on the other hand, others were not accede to our requests for a rebalancing in the light of the response to Euro crisis, we would recommend rejection and potential departure from the EU. For my own part, life outside the EU holds no terror. I believe globalization will increasingly force countries to cooperate more closely on a basis of functional communality rather than geographical proximity. It would, though, given our economic interdependence, be to the advantage of all create more stable and mutually agreed compromise. Business Secretary Vince Cable has urged shareholders in British banks to get a stronger grip on the boards and executives responsible for systematic abuse. He said that nobody at Barclays was prepared to take the responsibility for the rate rigging scandal that engulfed the company in recent days, and that the shareholders ought to take action. Mr. Cable's comments came as Bob Diamond, the bank's embattled chief executive, prepares to face a panel of MPs over controversy on Wednesday. Ministers have also announced an independent review into the interbank lending rate in the wake of revelations that it was rigged by Barclays and other financial institutions. This morning, Lord Turner, chairman of the Financial Services Authority, told BBC One's Andrew Marshall that people are justifiably angry at some of the practices that were present, in particular in the run-up to the financial crisis in 2008. He said that there had already been significant steps to prevent the LIBOR scandal happening again, and that he did not believe similar behaviour was taking place now. But he also said that the law should be tightened to tackle banking misbehaviour. Barclays boss Bob Diamond is facing growing demands for his resignation in the wake of the scandal, and there appeared to be moves by investors against the bank's chairman, Marcus Agius. Both are to be questioned by the Treasury Select Committee this week. The government said the independent review will consider the future operation of the so-called LIBOR rate and the possibility of introducing criminal sanctions for its manipulation. The move did not satisfy Labour, however, whose leader Ed Miliband insisted the public would not accept anything less than a full-scale independent inquiry into the culture and practices of banking. His call came after the Financial Services Authority uncovered serious failings in the sale of complex financial products to small businesses just days after the rate rigging affair emerged at Barclays. Taxpayer-backed Royal Bank of Scotland has also confirmed it is being investigated for manipulating the rates at which its banks lend to each other. Treasury sources said its review, to be headed by an as-yet undisclosed independent figure, would ensure a speedy response to the issue, resulting in amendments to the Financial Services Bill this summer. Ministers are considering setting up a separate review into the professional standards of bankers. On Saturday, Prime Minister David Cameron said that the government would ensure the criminal law can go wherever it needs to. Asked about calls for a wide-ranging inquiry, he said, "Let's take our time, think this through carefully. That's what I'm determined to do, and that's what we will do." But the Labour leader, Mr Miliband, said the Prime Minister was out of touch and warned that voters would not accept the establishment closing ranks. He called for an inquiry along the lines of Lord Justice Leveson's into media ethics and practices. Barclays was fined £290 million by the UK and US regulators for manipulating with the rate at which banks lend to each other in the first two scandals to rock the city this week. On Friday, the FSA revealed separately that Barclays, HSBC, Royal Bank of Scotland and Lloyds Banking Group had agreed to pay compensation to customers who were missold interest rate hedging products. some 28,000 of the products which have been sold since 2001 and may have been offered as protection or to act as a hedge against a rise in interest rates without the customer fully grasping the downside risks. Serious Fraud Office investigators are in talks with the regulator over the scandal. New motoring laws have come into force in France, making it compulsory for drivers to carry breathalyzer kits in their vehicles. As of today, motorists and motorcyclists will face an on-the-spot fine unless they travel with 2 single-use devices as part of a government drive to reduce the number of drink-drive-related deaths. The new regulations, which excludes mopeds, will be fully enforced and include foreigner drivers from November the 1st, following a 6-month grace period. Anyone failing to produce a breathalyzer after that date will receive a €11 fine. According to a poll in the website of Demanchi Quest France, just over 1/3 of the French people, 37%, have had a breathalyzer in their vehicle ahead of the new law. Of the 57% respondents who said they do not have a breathalyzer in their car, the majority, 51%, claimed to want to buy a very shortly. Retailers in the UK have reported a massive rise in the breathalyzer sales as British drivers travelling across the Channel ensure they do not fall foul of the new legislation in France. Car accessory retailer Halfords said it's selling 1 kit every minute of the day and has rushed extra stock into stores to cope with the unprecedented demand. 6 out of 10 Britons travelling to France are not aware that they have to carry an NF-approved breathalyzer at all times, the retailer said. French police have warned that they will be carrying out random checks on drivers crossing into France via ferries and through the Channel Tunnel to enforce the new breathalyzer rules. The French drink driving limit is 50 milligrams of alcohol in 100 millilitres of blood, substantially less than the UK limit of 80 milligrams. And finally, the bird of prey that patrols the skies of Wimbledon remains missing today, after it was snatched by thieves during the first week of the tennis tournament. Harris hawk Rufus, who deters pigeons from the All England Club, was stolen along with his cage overnight between Thursday and Friday. Detectives are investigating the theft and have appealed for a help from members of the public to find the missing bird. A police spokesman said Rufus was taken from a car parked on a private drive in Dunstall Road, Wimbledon, with the rear window open for ventilation. The hawk, which deters pigeons purely his presence, is also a family pet, he said. Rufus has become a well-known fixture at the South West London club, with visitors often stopping to ask for photos with the hawk. He even has his own Twitter account, but has not tweeted for a day. His last tweet was before Rafael Nadal's shock exit from the tournament, when he said, "Murray is through, Rafa is down 2-1. Ward played brilliantly but lost to Mardy Fish, and Italy are beating Germany 1-0. Owner Imogen Davis, 25, said they are still in shock after Rufus's disappearance. "It's really, really sad," she said. "He was taken in his travelling box where he sleeps because it's nice and dark and cool and he can fall asleep in there. We're very, very shocked. We just want to know that he's okay." She said, "We have reared 4-year-old Rufus as part of the family-run business, Avian Environmental Consultants. We work as a team together. To have him taken away like that is just horrible," she added. It's a family business. The birds are brought up around us. They are part of the family. It's just the way it is." Ms. Davis said she originally bought thought it was a prank, but not sure if a falconry grove, a falconry hood were stolen at the same time. Initially, I was almost hoping that it was a prank because there was more possibility of getting him back and somebody would realize it was a stupid thing to do, she added. But because of the hood and the glove were taken, I'm not sure. I supposed at least it means he had been looked after. Rufus is a Harris hawk, an American species. Hawking was the first introduced in All England Club in 1999 as an environmentally friendly method of pest control. Pigeons are not the Harris hawk's natural prey, and they are trained to not to attack, but to circle and fly around the court to scare the birds. Rufus is flown each morning and evening of the championships before and after play, but not during, as to so avoid any distraction. And that is all for tonight from everybody here. Bye bye. Good night.